Beneath the cold gleam of her chains, she believed she was nothing more than a prisoner, a trophy of war, a forgotten soul. But then a human stepped forward, not with a weapon, but with eyes that saw more than her bruises and scars. In that fleeting moment, fear turned to hope, despair to wonder, as she realized someone saw her not as property, not as a mistake, but as a living being who deserved freedom, warmth, and a name. The wind howled across the shattered plains, carrying the bitter scent of ash and burnt metal as night fell over the ruins of the alien outpost. She knelt beside the broken wall, her knees pressed into the cold debris, her chest heaving softly beneath her torn short combat top as faint blue light from the shattered dome above painted her smooth, cobalt-hued skin. Her long black hair clung to her face, damp with sweat, and her white horns caught the fading glow like carved ivory against the darkness. Fear trembled in her wide eyes, but there was something deeper beneath it. Hope, faint but alive as she watched the human soldier approach. He moved through the wreckage with deliberate calm, his breathing heavy, his armor scratched and dented from the battle that had just ended. Smoke curled behind him from the wreck of the orbital dropship, and the dull hum of distant engines signaled more hostiles coming. Yet his focus never left her, not once, as though she were the only thing left in a world crumbling apart. She tried to speak, but her throat caught, words failing as the cold gnawed at her bare legs and the weight of exhaustion dragged her shoulders down. She had been bred for war by her people, sculpted to be strong and unbreakable, yet never had she felt so fragile. Then his hand reached out, open, steady, offering warmth where the universe had given her only chains. The touch of his fingers against hers was startlingly gentle. She whispered, barely audible, that they would never let her live, that she was considered a traitor now for surrendering to a human. He said nothing, only pulled her closer, shielding her trembling form against his chest, letting her feel the heartbeat beneath his armor. Around them, the shadows lengthened as hostile silhouettes appeared beyond the fires, hunters from her own kind, drawn by the scent of betrayal. She flinched, expecting the human to retreat, but instead he shifted his stance, keeping her behind him, his rifle raised not at them but at the ground, his voice low, calm, yet strong enough to carry through the icy wind as he told them, "She is under my protection now. If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The words were simple, yet each one cut through the night like a promise carved in steel. The hunters snarled, but none moved, not yet, for they saw something in his eyes that even their war-forged instincts feared. He turned slightly, whispering for her to run when he gave the signal, but she shook her head violently, clutching his armor, unwilling to leave him to die for her. Tears stung her eyes, streaking across her cheeks as she whispered that she had no home, no kin, no name that meant anything anymore, only him. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a heartbeat, the battlefield fell silent. Slowly, he lowered his rifle and reached to wipe the tears from her cheek, his touch tender in contrast to the savage world around them. He told her she had more than she realized, because from this night forward she had him, and he would fight to make sure she lived long enough to find out who she really was. The hunters lunged then, finally breaking the tense stillness, and the human met them with a roar, one hand driving his rifle into the first attacker's chest, the other pulling her toward the shadow of a collapsed wall. Fire erupted in bright bursts, sparks flying like shattered stars as the night was filled with the clash of steel, gunfire, and cries of rage. She crouched low, clutching her knees, but her eyes stayed locked on him, not out of fear, but in stunned awe, as he fought with a fury that bordered on defiance of death itself. Each movement was precise, not reckless. He wasn't just surviving, he was protecting her, every strike thrown to keep her safe from claws and steel. When the last attacker fell, silence returned, thick, heavy, broken only by the hiss of wind through the broken walls. He stumbled back to her, bleeding, armor cracked, yet still managing a half-smile as he knelt and asked if she was hurt. She shook her head, too choked with emotion to speak. When he tried to rise, his strength faltered, and this time she caught him, pressing his head against her chest, her trembling fingers brushing through his hair as she whispered thanks in a language that cracked with every syllable. They would have to move before more came, yet for one fleeting moment neither cared. In the glow of burning wreckage and the bitter bite of the wind, she realized something strange, something that shouldn't have been possible. She wasn't just being saved, she was being seen. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of what that meant. She rose, gripping his hand firmly, guiding him forward into the darkness where safety, or death, waited. But it didn't matter. Not anymore. They would face whatever came, together.